Let's just start with the arms behind, as we normally do, just to pull the chest open. And then just start moving the head a little bit. And now let's try the equivalent of that with the stick, if you have the stick there. Having the stick behind the back, with your elbows hooked around. So there's normally a point on the spine that's where there's a bit of a kink. That's the point we want the stick to rest. So our usual use of the mind, thinking, damages the spine because it's top heavy. So the point on the back that needs to pull in a little bit will encourage the heart to lift up. So the image I use is like the hot air balloon tethered with a rope to a stake in the ground. So the actual balloon is the head. The burner that's creating the hot air is the thymus. The basket, which contains the passengers, contains your passengers, your loved ones, is the heart, the deep heart. And the Dan Shen is where the rope is tied to the ground. The dantian has to be strong, tight, secure for the head and the heart to properly open out into what they really are. And now let's bring the stick up behind the neck. So this is tricky because it tends to pull the head forwards. That's what we don't want. So it'd be quite easy for the stick just to roll down your back. And then let's turn a little bit. Slowly, aware of the spirit sparking the change in direction, the mind traveling, and the body finally being pulled. And remember, the spirit expresses in the eyes. So my eyes sort of glance to my right, my mind follows that, my energy follows that, and my body finally is dragged round. And let's just try a little bit of tipping. One side contracts, the other side stretches. Then let's bring the hands to the front. Now just pulling and pushing the stick. Remember how we used to do this? So holding it not too tight, just enough to grip it, and then pulling the hands apart, trying to stretch the stick in the middle. Keeping the shoulders relaxed. All the time there's resistance, which I'm working with. And that will produce energy. The pressure I'm creating helps each of the three centers come into its own. So the thymus starts to smolder, the head wants to expand and fill the space I'm in, and the belly wants to contract even more. So we have to make sure that the dantian, the lower dantian, it contracts, but not because it gets tense, but because it gets still. So as I quieten down inside, as I empty of thoughts, then there's a sense of something condensing into here, into the dantian. And then just push the stick. And just working the hands towards each other a little. it can be really gentle. And then pulling. So pulling and twisting, just working the stick like you're trying to break it. Mind continuous. I'm keeping a constant pressure that is flowing through time like a thread, an unbroken thread. And that should be what the form is, an unbroken thread of movement from start to finish, and then pushing again. And pulling. Okay, now just put the stick down. And now let's try a bit of that breathing through the small hole, but the reverse breathing. So it's just the breathing exercise, when we pull the hands in and tighten the belly, and then release and push the belly out. We want to coordinate that so that we breathe in as we pull the hands in. So the pressure really increases inside here because the volume's decreasing, but I'm actually breathing in. And then I breathe out here. and turning a bit with it. And then let's try a bit of the turning the head. And then just figure of eighting. So effectively that is figure of eighting, but with the arms outstretched. Letting the spine move as much as possible, tipping and turning. Yeah, so imagine you're sitting in a great plain, one of those African plains with amazing views. So you, as a physical being, are centered here, but your consciousness extends as far as your eyes can see. So there's a sense here of something filling that space, but also a sense of something here really contracting and holding you together, stopping you from just dissipating and disappearing. And as soon as the mind starts thinking, you lose its expansiveness. Okay, let's try some of the butterfly. and then into the squat. Feel the spread across the sacrum. And then sitting and spreading the legs. And then kneeling. Yeah, so if we sort of get a really good posture with this, it's easier than sitting cross-legged. Feels very Japanese as well with the proud chest. And then just let yourself bow forwards into the fetus. And then back up. And then if you can, just separate the feet a little bit so that you're sitting between the feet on the floor. Be careful with this because it stretches the knees. And then just sitting with the legs out front. And just leaning forwards. All of these stretches need time and patience. Let's try just a little bit of the leaning back and cycling, just to start getting some activity in the legs without them actually having to support us. It's important. Feel the dantian at the center, holding it all together, and really loosen the hips. And then back up into the sumo squat. Feet extensions of your sitting bones. Let's just feeling it coming from the alternating action of the two legs. One leg pulls, the other leg straightens. So when I pull with the foot, so I'm pulling with the foot now, I get pulled down towards it. So it draws me down, it sinks me, and it also pulls me around towards it. So it draws my attention towards it. It's a bit like hunting. So I'm extending my foot here into a blind spot because I've actually turned over here. And then when it pulls, I get drawn down because the foot is on the ground. And I also get pulled towards it. And this is yielding. Really, the first action in yielding is sinking, and then turning, and then moving the body. Slip into the second one. And just feel how different this feels because you're slipping into the back foot now. It sort of gives you space and time because you're moving away effectively from the place you're turning towards. And then slip into riding horse. Knees drifting apart, the groin opening, the hips breaking, splitting. The sacrum heavy at the back, hanging down. And a real sense of the heels sinking into the ground. My inner quiet draws gravity into me. I effectively become heavier. Now let's come onto the toes. So just lifting the heels up, and suddenly you become a different creature. Become very active, shaky. The activity really, or the attention, moves from dantian to thymus. And then rocking back onto the heels one at a time. Around, around. And then let's just gather gravity a couple of times just to help it settle into this. Feeling the heels, the sacroiliacs sort of spreading, helping the heels to get a sense of sinking into the ground. And then just slipping lazily into riding horse. I want the feeling that my heels are being sucked into the ground rather than me having to imagine myself heavier to get them to push down. So I'm really being drawn down. And now let's try again, coming off the heels. It's almost like your spine is trying to become horizontal. So the bum sticks out, tail sticks out. This tries to come forwards. So the head has to pull back to stop yourself from looking down. It's much more like a dog with the horizontal spine and the head pulled back to look forwards. And rocking back again. Let's just do a few, just the two circles, so just continuing that. Feel these yielding folds. So as I turn here, I'm coming into this foot and I'm really folding here at the hip, and that's sucking my hand down into that fold. So one hand reaches out and then gets drawn in. And then just into riding horse. And now let's try just moving the weight backwards and forwards, but without moving the feet. So we're in riding horse. To get into bow and arrows, all I need to do is turn to the corner. So now I'm in bow and arrow posture. Now just moving backwards and forwards, but with the waist facing the corner. You can turn the front toes out a little bit, but try and keep them angled in, because that's what we would like if we were fighting. And using the legs to pull again, always using the legs to pull. So I'm bending the straight leg to draw myself into it. That's pulling me into the leg, but that's really a byproduct of me trying to pull the ground up into my dantian. Moving slowly. I'm listening. I'm bristling. I'm not just listening. Imagine you've gone for a walk in the hills. And you turn back at some point, but you turn back a bit late. So before you get home, it's beginning to get really dark. So just imagine the care you'd have to give each footstep to make sure you put your foot down surely and you don't step somewhere dangerous. So the darker it got, even though you're getting tired because you're on your way home, your spirit is really waking up and bristling with attention and awareness. That's the quality we want to bring to our work, especially the form. And they say the more advanced you are, the less it's to do with the body and the more it's to do with the mind. Good, looks really good. Just settle back into the front again. So riding horse shouldn't have to move the feet too much. Again, feel this sense of something swelling out of either side of your sacrum and coming around. And that's the arms. That's what the arms are doing here. And now just turn to the other corner and move backwards and forwards here. Again, really activate the foot. So as I bring my weight out of the foot can expand and then it contracts to pull me into it. all the time listening, but listening especially to the space beneath your dantian, so the region of your legs and feet. Let's bring it back to riding horse. Now let's try a little bit of the sinking to pick up the ball. And trying to feel, you know, when we work the stick, pulling in and out, and we're either pushing or we're pulling. So the two sides of the body working against each other. So that's always there. So there's the sense that my hamstrings are trying to pull me down and my quads are pushing up to try and control the speed. So my hamstrings almost fire to pull me down, and these are having to work to control the descent. And then it's like the opposite way here. Now my quads are really pushing and my hamstrings are having to control the up. So the two sides of the bone, in a sense, they're always sort of fighting each other productively. The mind that controls that is the equilibrating mind. It's the Taoist mind, the mind that sees the bigger picture and can have a little bit of itself with each of the active forces. Back into riding horse. Riding horse is difficult. It's difficult to have this sense of the legs wanting to bend. So when you get that, it will feel like the ground is drawing you down, and it means that you'll lean back a little bit. When we lean forwards in exhaustion, it's like we don't want to sink. So when we really get the buttocks melting down the backs of the legs, then you'll lean back a little bit. And then you can open up to the bigger picture, to the world at large. It's great here because through that window I've got like a 10 kilometer plus view. Okay, now let's try backwards and forwards again, but now just facing front. But now drawing the energy up, bending the leg, and then directing it into the opposite hand. So by bending the leg, I'm effectively yielding the ground up into me. And then I want to spit it out through the opposite hand. And that requires an act of spirit. So draw the ground in and then fire it out. And let your eyes just gaze intently to infinity. So yield and attack. So both yield and attack must be present potentially. And they say 90% yield, 10% attack. So you're a really nice, yieldy person. But at any moment, you can just lash out and clobber the person with no qualms. And the other person will feel that. They'll feel that, you could actually become the monster at the drop of a hat. And so they won't push it. This is especially true of children. I've got a student that he's 50 and he's got two little kids and he's having a real hard time because he just can't discipline them. So he yells at them, but they don't feel the danger of his presence. And so they don't actually respect him. So this is what I'm trying to get into him at the moment. Wake him up, basically. Now let's try with the other foot forwards. It's this feeling that you're sort of on a hair trigger, slightest provocation, and you'd really just go crazy. So I'm drawing the energy from something really specific, the ground beneath my foot, and then I'm sending it out into the universe as far as my eyes can see. And so if you can't let your energy out, then you're basically depressed. And pretty much everyone nowadays is depressed. The kids, certainly. So, it just goes off. So I can release my energy. I can just let it fly off me. No strings attached. Back to riding horse. Go feel the heels. Give it time. Give it a few seconds before you dare lean back and let the heart lift. And then when you do, you enter a different world. Now let's just do the stepping one. Just stepping, but really gently and gingerly. So this is the night walk. Like you're walking on a terrain of boulders, and there's just a little moonlight. So you have to catch the glint off the boulders, and then you put the foot down, you make sure it's okay, and then you bring the weight into it. There is tension. We relax so that we can then start working with the correct tension. Attention, intention, they're all tensions. And then the other foot. So you daren't fall into the foot. And now let's try a little bit of this one. Allowing the turn. Feel that listening mind. And so the enemy really is slipping into automatic. I really feel every millimeter of movement. And then the same thing, but just a bit wider. Yes, it's these breaks in the hips that's important. Pulling the heel up activates the foot and the leg and pulls me into it and towards it. And then let it slip into the figures of eights. So same thing with the feet. Then slipping into the riding horse again. Sinking. Buttocks melting into the hamstrings. Like heavy buttocks. So let's try a bit of the form again. So up to single whip again. Now lifting the knee when we take the foot off the ground, and just with that quality of really listening, like it's the situation is dangerous. And also, Chen Manqing's thing of swimming in air. So it's really difficult to move the arms through the air because it's so thick. We just need devices that will stitch each moment to the next. So the mind, the scattery mind doesn't get a chance to fly off. I just want to lift my knee higher than my hip, a little bit higher than my hip. And then I can step, and then I transfer the weight. Yeah, and the real sense here that my hands are sort of dipping down, like you're in the pool up to your waist. You know how difficult it is to walk in water. And so here I sort of suck the hands out of the water. And then they disappear into the water. And now basically all the way through the form, it's just the 2 circle exercise. So I can't move quickly because the air is so viscous. And this is just that exercise we did earlier, but yielding the energy up and then firing it out the opposite hand. And now again, this is the 2 circles, really turning right round behind, so you're looking behind. Okay, let's try the other side. Yeah, let's carry on this time to the First crossing hands.